Hi, everyone. Just getting everyone in who's shown up in the waiting room. Welcome, welcome. If you'd like to make your cameras live and say hi, that would be great. I'm Marcy. And hi.
Hi, I'm Julie.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay? Sorry, I was listening to Andre Leroux play the violin on another page.
Oh, that sounds really nice. Yeah, we could
Yeah,
probably use some welcome in music instead of
yeah.
what we
I
got.
hope could you hear that?
No,
Okay,
unfortunately.
good. I'm like
No,
trying,
no,
I
no.
couldn't get it to shut off.
Who is here? And I don't know why I have to let everybody in. I guess they've set it up that way. Who's here for the first time?
Me.
Carlene, and is it Della?
Yeah.
Hi, welcome.
Hi.
Welcome. And who's been here for the past, like this would be their third one of these masters ones? Anybody anybody come back for seconds? Well, some people have, yeah. If it's not your first, you must have been here already once before. Welcome in. It's not even the top of the hour just yet. So yeah. So who here is not in North America? Anybody joining us from some part offshore? Okay. Oh, from Quebec. Okay. Hi, Richard. I count that as North America. Yeah. Our neighbors to the north. Good to have you here. Yeah. So I see people adjusting their cameras. I am going to ask everybody if you would like to say hello or introduce yourself. Now would be a great time because I'm going to ask everybody to mute their microphones when we get started. So anybody wants to have a check-in? Again, I was asking who's been here for the past two sessions? Anybody? Jonathan. Yeah? I heard a peep. Not sure if that was you. All right. Well, it's straight up 4 p.m. And so we are going to officially begin today's session. And I want to beg your indulgence for a moment because people are continuing to join us. And so I'm going to be distracted by that little reminder and keep popping people in as they come on board. Okay, so I'd like to ask everybody who's joined now to mute yourselves just so that we don't have background going on. And they're still coming in. Welcome in, everybody. My name is Marcy. This is, hey, Bev. Oh, she's not in yet. Hi, Bev. This is the third in a three-part series, I believe, entitled Learning from the Masters. And I'm just going to wait a couple more minutes to start because people are still coming in and I don't want to, I'll be distracted. Let me, however, go ahead and see if I can get my screen up because certainly we're going to want to do that. So, oh boy, I hope it's going to let me share my screen without a lot of, okay. Yeah. Okay. Bear with me for just a moment here while I close everything that we don't want to look at. Okay. And there we are. So welcome in, everyone. Marcy Mearns here on November 15 with part 3 of Learning from the Masters. Our goal is to build our skills with the RadarOpus software and repertorization. Okay. So what we're going to do, we have an hour and 15 minutes, I believe, scheduled for today's session. There's a lot of information to pack into that short period of time. I want to encourage you to simply sit back and go along for the ride. If you want to watch the video, it will be posted later on the RadarOpus.us learning page. In fact, let me open that website up for you right now. And this would be the main website for the RadarOpus North America organization, RadarOpus.us. And you'll see here there's a link right in the very middle of the screen that says free live webinars and then free on-demand videos. So what you're going to want to do to watch this video or any other that you might choose to enjoy or study from is just go to the free on-demand videos. And I got to tell you, there are so very many videos here that you may have a tough time choosing. So if you want to see something that I've done, my name is Marcy. So you're going to go to this little search box over here and you're going to type in MARCI. And there you're going to come up with theoretically everything that I've done. If you have any trouble locating this or any other videos, recordings that we've done, you can always reach out to customer support. If you're new to the software or you want to really brush up on your basic skills, I recommend that you go to this training video page and you can check out Getting Started parts 1, 2, and 3. Those are 20 to 30 minutes each. And you're going to go over everything you need from my way of doing things to get going with your software. Okay, so those are kind of a quick review. But again, today we're going to be looking at, here's our agenda. We're going to be looking at 2 cases with luck. And from there, then we will use the last 10 minutes or so for a Q&A if there are any outstanding questions. I want to encourage people as we're moving through today's presentation to feel free to reach out. If you've got a question, put it in the chat and I'm going to check those from time to time. If it's something really egregious that I've done and you need to pull my chain, just unmute yourself and give me a poke, okay? And with that said, welcome again to today's session. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is a super quick review. As you can see on our agenda, we've got a review here of the previous 2 sessions. So if you wanted to review these, you will find that on September 20th, we had 2 cases in that session. And if you recall, the first was a case of colic. This is a case from Erastus case. And we took a look at some of what Kent had to say about case analysis. And if you'll recall that case, well, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the video, this is a spoiler alert here. We found the strange, rare, and peculiar rubric to be this one here. In the generalities chapter, pains appear suddenly and disappear suddenly. And that is the rubric that decided the case for us. So that was our first case on September 20th. We had a second case, if you recall, the case of the heavy tea drinker. This was a case from Margaret Tyler. And as she points out here, she gives us a whole analysis. And we did the repertorization and we looked at this from various angles. That was on our Senecum case, okay? And she gives lots of details about why that would be. The last session we had last month was on October 18th. And you may recall, again, this is from Kent, a case of alcoholism, dyspnea, and loss of memory. And this was a really interesting case with a wonderful, okay, if you're going to check out the video, you might want to plug your ears now. If you recall, we had to get right down to the wire before we identified the remedy that Kent prescribed, which was sarsaparilla. Okay, that's a beautiful case. So if you want to go ahead and take a look at either one of those videos from September or October, those should be posted online for your learning. And again, if not, you can contact customer support. He should also have the PDF handout so that you can look at the slides and so on if you prefer to do things that way. Okay, so for today, as I said, with any luck, we're going to get through 2 cases. And if we don't get through both cases, I want to encourage you to pick up a copy of the second case, which is basically what we're reviewing in that second case is, let me go back to my agenda and I'll tell you exactly what it is, the use of placebo in prescribing. This according to the prescriber here, who was Erastus' case. And I think it's an interesting study. Whether you subscribe to the use of placebo or SACLAC or not, just to follow how he lays out what he did in remedy repetition to go to a complete cure in that case is really, really interesting. So to the main case for today, this case is taken, and I wanted to go over a bit of this historical information just because I found this actually really fascinating. I found a document in my RadarOpus software entitled Herring's Model Cures. And forgive me for pronunciation here, but let's just say by Dr. Singh. Now, I looked and looked and was unable to find much on this book itself. But I actually did find a copy of it eventually. I think it was running for $50. So here's what the author says about this particular book. And he's referring to himself as the editor. He says, while studying Herring's analytical repertory, he came across numerous model cures cited by the great master. And those model cures, in turn, Herring was citing such eminent physicians as Hahnemann, Lippe, and so on and so forth. Someone has got their microphone unmuted because we're hearing throat clearing. So if you wouldn't mind, just check and make sure you're all on mute there. Okay. Now, Dr. Singh then took these model cures from this work, the analytical repertory by Herring, and created this little volume where I sourced our case for today. Now, I didn't know much about Herring's analytical repertory, so I said, let me take a look. The second edition of that work was published in 1881. And you can actually find this online. It's in one of those online libraries. That's where I got some of these screenshots. Now, bearing in mind that Kent's repertory came out in 1897, so this predates Kent. And when you go and take a look in this, what was entitled The Analytical Repertory of Symptoms of the Mind, you can read the introduction. All this you can find online. It's not in your software, but you'll find it, and it's interesting. There are actually 48 chapters in this repertory. And here are some examples of some of the rubrics. And you'll notice that sensations in the chest with anxiety, you'll notice these are some really small little rubrics, many of them just a single symptom. So it's not quite what we're used to certainly in Kent or any of the more modern repertories, but it's an interesting historical juncture. And what you will find is buried within Herring's analytical repertory are what are called these model cures. Okay. And so what happened was apparently Dr. Singh, in doing his due diligence and study, discovered those model cures like we see here extracted from Herring's analytical repertory, and he's published them in a little volume. So these are not long, extensive cases, but hopefully you will see that we can really get a lot of mileage out of each one of these model cures, if you will. So this is the one I chose for today. It's called, or I've called it, Young Man with Chest Pain, and this is the entire case from Herring's Model Cure. So I'm just going to read this very, very quickly, and then we're going to move into how we might do a case analysis here and utilize the software tools. Okay, so a young man has cramp-like pain in the chest, comes in stormy, cloudy weather when walking fast, from warm, tight clothing, change of temperature, and violent laughing. Has to stand still when walking against the wind. Oppression on the chest, anxiety, alternatingly cold and hot, raises white, slimy mucus, which relieves. Going into a warm room makes worse. That is our case. Okay, so obviously there are going to be a few remedies that come immediately to mind, but we want to do our due diligence here and see if we can unpack this and repertorize it. This looks very much like many of the acute cases that we have come through our practices today. Okay, a lot of information. The case taker is giving us everything that's necessary to find a great remedy for the patient. Okay, so what I did to break this down, and I'm just going to we're going to go through the steps of how I broke down the case, and then we will take a look at the repertorizing. Okay, so let me see if we've got any questions. Nope, so far so good. So the first thing I've done here is I have said, are there any mental and emotional symptoms in the case? And the only thing that we have is this anxiety. Okay, now normally would we bother to repertorize just anxiety? As you know, it's a huge rubric. So we know we've got an anxious patient here. We could argue that this anxiety is anxiety felt in the chest. It's not explicitly outlined here, but let's see how we might handle that in the future. Okay, now the next symptom grouping that I'm going to identify, this is how I broke this case down, was I said, what's the chief complaint? We have a cramp-like pain in the chest or oppression in the chest. So two distinct descriptions for the pain in the chest. Now, what I did this time is I decided to do what I call the blob method. I have a software for doing blobs, but you know, a piece of paper works perfectly fine. Backing up here, I had complaints. All right, I made it blob for my complaints, and I said they're in the chest, and I've got cramping and oppression. You know, this helps me get a visual on the case, and I would encourage you, if you have any difficulty at all or confusion, that you know, try a method like this. So let's move to the next set of symptoms identified here. So we had the chest pain accompanied by, so these again are complaints. We have alternatingly cold and hot. So that would imply some kind of a fever or temperature dysregulation situation. And we have white slimy mucus. Okay, so I put those on my blob chart for you. These are the complaints in the case. Again, because we're working with that very cramped couple of paragraphs of case, and this happens often when you're taking a case, you've got somebody calls you over the phone, you're just going to throw a bunch of stuff into your file, and then you've got to take some time to sort it out. So this was my effort at sorting out the complaints in the case. Now, the next thing that we have to look at really are the modalities, the aggravations and ameliorations for the complaints in this case. Okay, that's about all we've got to go on. So the first thing I did is I said, okay, it looks to me like this particular patient and his symptoms are aggravated by temperature and weather. Remember, the cramp-like pain comes in stormy, cloudy weather. It comes with a change of temperature. This is all temperature and weather. There's wind sensitivity, as well as going into a warm room, which would make this worse. Okay, so, it's just pulsatilla, right? Stormy, cloudy, going into a warm room. Let's give pulsatilla and be done. Who thinks that's a great idea? Yeah, I might be very tempted to do that, especially if I'm in a hurry, and then I probably get a call back the next day. So let's carry on. Those were my temperature and weather aggravations. I have got also additional aggravations when walking fast, warm, tight clothing, and violent laughing. So I'm going to move to my little blob analysis for that part of the case. These are my aggravations. Remember, we have change of temperature. We had stormy and cloudy. We have entering a warm room. We have walking in the wind. All this aggravates. And we also have violent laughing or laughing aggravates, as well as the warm, tight clothes. Okay. And as far as ameliorations go, we've really got nothing more than oppression in the chest and alternately cold and hot raises white slimy mucus, which relieves. So there is some relief from the expectoration of the mucus, which I've characterized here. Okay, so here's the whole case in blobs. This is our case. That's all we've done here is we've taken all of the information, the anxious patient or the anxiety. And then you see, I forgot to put that on when I was doing my beautiful blobs here. So I had to add them in. We've got our complaints, we've got our aggravations, and we've got our ameliorations. And that's basically what we're working with to find a decent remedy for this particular patient. Okay, so let us move now to, this is how I would do this case. Again, we're doing our best effort here. On the complaints, the first thing I'm going to do before I start looking for rubrics is I want to kind of orient myself. These are my words, okay? These are not rubrics that I looked up, but I've been doing enough of these acutes now to know that these chief complaints here, I'm all going to find them in the chest. I've got anxiety in the chest, oppression, and cramping, okay? I've got expectoration. I know enough to know that my expectoration is white and it's slimy, okay? Very good. We've given that information. And now in the hot and cold alternating, I'm thinking I want to look at fever alternating with chill. I'm not exactly certain, but that's okay. What we want to do now is go to the repertory and see what we can do. So our first set of symptoms on our first clipboard. Now, you'll all forgive me for just a moment. Because I didn't clear all my clipboards. I'm going to do that right now. Okay, and I'm also going to close that volume and that. Okay, I've got nothing but my repertory here open now and a clean set of clipboards to work with over here. I tend, those of you who worked with me before or seen these videos, I tend to like to separate my case onto multiple clipboards. If you're not sure how to have multiple clipboards, you may or may not have a program, depending on which engine you have with your RadarOpus. You may or may not have as many as you see. I have 12 here, but the way I can get more, you'll notice I'm pointing with my mouse to this area near the clipboards, in between the clipboards. And if I use a right click with my mouse down here at the very bottom, it says more clipboards. So you might want to try that. I've already reached the maximum number. I've maxed out on my clipboards. Anywho, what are we doing with our case? Let's go back to okay, we've got the anxiety, oppression, and cramping in the chest. All right, let's go to the repertory. And I'm feeling comfortable and confident that I do not need to search for these particular symptoms. I'm going to be able to type my way using the navigation window in the software to get to where I want to go. So the first thing I'm going to do here, in other words, I'm not using my mouse at all. I'm just going to go to the keyboard and I'm going to type in the first few letters of the chapter. So that would be chest. And as soon as chest is highlighted here, I can use the enter or return key. And we said anxiety, right? ANX. The little hand is pointing to anxiety. I'm going to hit the enter or return key. I'm now ready to dip into chest anxiety. And my methodology is always to go all the way into the repertory before making my final selection of a rubric. The little hand is pointing to anxiety, and I am able to add this to my first clipboard in any number of ways. The quickest way, you'll notice that my first clipboard here is designated as the default clipboard. It's got the little check mark. I can change default clipboard. Watch this. I'm going to press and hold the Option key on my Mac keyboard. And as I click on a different clipboard, you'll notice that those are changing their designation to the default. So I've turned it back to the first default clipboard. And just by using the equal sign on my keyboard on the upper right-hand corner, I can add that rubric to that first or default clipboard in this case. I can also just drag the rubric to the clipboard, and when you see that green plus, you can let go. Okay, it says I've already got it in the clipboard. Very good. Let's just make sure by clicking on that clipboard. Yeah, there's my first symptom. There's the anxiety felt in the chest. Okay, so going back to my repertory, what was the next symptom? We had chest oppression, right? Okay. So from here, if I just use the delete key in the upper left-hand corner of my keyboard, I've got chest anxiety. Let's delete again. It's going to get rid of that first word. And now I'll type oppression, OPPR. There's chest oppression. Enter, enter. Now that's a huge rubric, isn't it? Not so terribly useful, but I'm going to go ahead and add it to my chest complaints clipboard. And let's go back to the repertory and let's do our final one. So backspace key, backspacing again to remove oppression. And what was it? Cramping pain. Now, if I put cramping, chest cramping, C-R-A-M-P. Okay. The little hand is pointing to cramp. When I hit the enter or return key, it takes me basically to a prompt or an empty rubric here, referring me to the correct rubric. And this is why it's nice to go right into the repertory. See pain cramping, that's a hyperlink. So if I double click there, there's the rubric that I want. Now, in all honesty, I would argue that our remedy needs to exist here. Okay, because this, out of all of the complaints in the chest, anxiety is huge, oppression is huge, but cramping in the chest, if we were to prioritize the importance of these three rubrics, obviously, there's much overlap. If I scroll out to the right here, you'll see that I've got 35 remedies that cover all three of those symptoms. And then, of course, I've got many, many more with the anxiety and oppression. I mean, it goes all the way out here. You'll see here in the lower left, 532 remedies. Okay. But the cramping is probably the most characteristic for this particular case. So we'll just keep that in mind as we move ahead. So that is our first clipboard. Okay. Let's go ahead and let's make a clipboard for the expectoration. And then let's do this fever alternating chill thing on a third clipboard. And then we will take a look at the actual rubrics. Okay. I just want to see if we've got any questions or concerns. Oh, why can I not? Oh, there we go. Okay. We're looking good. Let's do our expectoration. Okay. Back to the repertory. And now what I'm going to do, remember what I pointed out, that I can change my default clipboard, which makes my work a little speedy. For those of you who are familiar with this, you'll know that it's a speedy thing. So if I just, again, press and hold the option key and then click clipboard 2, that's now my default clipboard. And we'll see that we can add the symptoms really quickly using that plus sign. All right. So I want expectoration, EXP. As soon as I get, now look, if I just type EX, I've got 3 chapters still available to me. So I do have to put that P. It's down to expectoration. So all I do is hit the enter or return key, and we want a color white expectoration. There we go. Good enough for me. And if you recall, we can do the drag, or we can also use the plus sign, and that's going to throw that rubric straight into my second clipboard. See how that did that? I want to unselect all rubrics. There we go. Okay. So things are shaping up a little bit, aren't they? Okay, let's go back to our repertory. So we had expectoration white and we had slimy. Okay, so I'm going to, as soon as I hit the delete or backspace key, it's going to take me, my navigation window is going to take me right back where I started. Back up again, and I'm going to put slimy, S-L-I-M. Okay, this looks very similar to what we had before with cramping. C, mucus. All right, let's go to mucus. Come on. Needed to double click there. And this then would be the correct rubric. And you'll see that was hyperlinked for us. So let's go ahead and use the plus sign. And we've now got our expectoration modeled here, as well as our anxiety, oppression, and cramping pain in the chest. So taking a really quick look here at so far, and I use most commonly, you'll notice here this little chest guy in the upper left-hand corner, that's where the analysis strategy is located. And I will suggest that you, as a default, use the sum of symptoms sorted by degrees. Now, what does that mean? For those who are not familiar, This first set of numbers, so sum of symptoms, that would be the second row, sorted by degrees would be the third. Okay, so this first set of numbers is nothing more than giving us a reference point. So natron, for example, is 24, bryonia 20, etc. Sum of symptoms means, let's take a look at phosphorus. This is telling us the number 5 here, that phosphorus appears in all 5 of our symptoms. We've got to go all the way down to aconite at 18 to find sum of symptoms being 4, because aconite does not show up in our cramping rubric. Okay, so that's sum of symptoms. That's the first order of sort. Then the second order of sorting has to do with the grade of each remedy within the rubric. So you'll notice that phosphorus, as well as arsenicum and calcarea, actually, let's look at it. Let's focus on arsenicum and calcarea for just a moment. They both appear in 5 rubrics, and they actually both, if you add the numbers up here, you will find that they all add up to 12. So it's 3 and 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 3 makes 12. Lycopodium also adds up to 12. It appears as a grade 2 in all 3 of those chest rubrics, but then a grade 3 for our expectoration. So if you want to see where those grades are, you can just simply click. Let's look at the cramping, and we want to see lycopodium in a grade 2. Here's that chest cramping, and indeed lycopodium is in italics, which is a grade 2. Okay, so sum of symptoms sorted degrees is telling us that we've only got, if we want to absolutely hang our hat on every single rubric thus far, we've only got 17 remedies to consider here. Okay, because unfortunately aconite is out of the running with no chest cramping. And cactus, for example, even though it's got all of our chest remedies, is not represented in the rubric for white expectoration. So if we just want to use that very simple analysis strategy, this is where we're going to focus our attention. Yeah. But let's proceed with the rest of the case, because we've got all of the aggravations and the little bit of an amelioration, right? Oh, yeah. Okay. Fever, alternating chill. Let's go back. Go to our repertory, and fever. Now this thing said nothing but hot and cold, right? So I did have to do a little interpretation there. So I decided to call that a fever, and I'm going to just say it's alternating with chills. That looks good. Chills. There we go. Enter. And notice, you know, they will give us an alternate if there's a similar rubric or a reference rubric. You'll see it in gray here at the beginning, and these are also hyperlinked. So if I wanted to go and look at chill alternating heat, I could double click. Oh, if I go to chill alternating heat, it actually refers me back to fever alternating with chills. So no matter how you slice it, that's going to be our rubric. And what did I say? I want to put that actually on clipboard 3. Okay, so here are our complaints. Okay, and if we consider all these to be reliable, we've narrowed things down now to 13 medicines for consideration. But as I said, we haven't done anything with our modalities yet. Okay, Karen, you got your microphone on? If you wouldn't mind muting.
Thank you.
That would be great. Thank you. Okay, great. And again, if anybody has, if you need to interrupt, feel free. Okay, so these were my words. I went to the repertory. I looked for my symptoms, and these are actually the rubrics that I used. Okay, so these are the rubrics for the complaints piece. All right. And, I screenshotted it, but you know what? I didn't screenshot all 3. So I apologize. This, I did a little revising as I was going along. We've got, pardon me, just that first clipboard, but in fact, these would be what we want for our complaints rubrics, right? Okie doke. So I probably need to fix that in this presentation, but oh well. So let's move on to the next set of blobs, if you will, which are our aggravations. Okay. So once I've got my aggravations sorted out for myself, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make some notes on what do I think I want to look up as I continue with my repertorization. Okay. So In this weather side over here, I'm thinking about stormy weather. I'm thinking about things worse in the wind. And I'm thinking about the change of temperature aggravates. Now, I've also got the warm room here. I didn't know what to do with the warm room, to be honest with you. So we're going to see what I came up with for that. And hopefully that's a little learning. On the other aggravations where we had, remember it was aggravated laughing and also warm, tight clothes. I had to ask myself, well, really, you have to ask yourself in all of these instances, is it the patient as a whole who's being aggravated by whatever the situation might be, whatever the weather, for example, or is it that the symptoms themselves are aggravated? I chose in this case to go with the symptoms themselves being aggravated because we don't really have much more than that to go on when you think about the way this case is presented. It's presented as a case of the chest pain, the cramping and the tightness, and the symptoms are aggravated and or ameliorated by various things. But you do always want to ask yourself that question because sometimes there's a generality that pertains to the patient as a whole. Like the warm room thing, for example, that might be something that we could argue it could be. We could almost argue that warmth in general aggravates because there's the warm room as well as the warm, tight clothes. But we really don't want to interpret if we don't have to. Okay, so these were my words. And let us go on to, gee, this next slide is anybody's guess. Oh, it's my rubrics. Look at that. I didn't put my, well, if we want to, we can run through this really quickly and grab those rubrics and throw them up on the clipboard. Okay, so we've got generals, temperature, windy, stormy, and wind. Let's do it really quickly. Okay, so generalities, weather, stormy, stormy weather, weather, enter. And they're telling me see thunderstorm or see windy and stormy weather. Well, obviously it's that one, isn't it? Beautiful. Nice little 75 remedies. Let's pop that onto a weather clipboard here. And let's see what else we can come up with. Generals. Oh, look at this. Here's a cross reference or a synonym, I should say. Windy and stormy weather. And they're referring us also to wind, which is one of our issues. So let's just double click on that. Generals, wind. That would mean that the wind is aggravating, right? That was exactly the symptom. So we're going to have that one. And what was the third one? Come on. Yeah, generals, wind, temperature, change of temperature. That's kind of a critical piece, right? Kind of a thermometer, like, oh, maybe he just needs mercurius. All right, generals, temperature, change of. See, if you don't know these rubrics are here, this is a great exercise just to get a handle on what's out there. So there we've got those weather modalities outlined, and let us choose another clipboard for the other ones. All right, we have, chest laughing and generals laughing aggravates. Now, why did I do that? Let's have a look. Let's go chest laughing aggravates. Oh, so kind of useless, huh? It's a very tiny rubric. That's probably why I said to myself, I think it's the laughing that makes the chest symptoms worse, but this is useless. I can't do much with this because it's too small. So I probably went to myself, generals, laughing, aggravates. Oh, that's a little better. That's actually a lot better. 35 remedies. I would venture to say that our symptom is here. Now, should we be bothered with mind laughing aggravates? I would argue no, because we have really no mentals here having to do with laughing. So we've just got this much laughing aggravates. And actually, let me just point out to you, for those who are not familiar, we've got a total with these two symptoms of 39 remedies here for our consideration in the laughing matters. Okay, so there's our laughing and chest clothing and chest oppression clothing. So you see, once again, these are my notes from how I worked this case up in advance. let's go to chest, clothing, aggravates. That's kind of nice, 32 remedies. But I also found, oh, respiration, clothing, aggravates. Well, does he have a problem with respiration? No, not necessarily. You'd think the prescriber would have said so. All right. And we need to distinguish that. I've got somebody right now who's got a chest problem, and I keep asking her, how's your breathing? Not bothered. So it's not a problem of respiration, it's chest oppression. That's what my client has, and that's also what this person has. So let's go for chest oppression, and let's see if there's anything having to do with clothing. Look at that. Voila. Chest oppression, clothing aggravates. That's pretty much what this guy has, right? So I've got now 2 clothing situations on the chest. Okay, so with my clothing aggravates, and if I press and hold the command key, I can look at 2 clipboards at a time. So I've got now 2 of my aggravation clipboards. Let's go ahead and put the 3rd one in there. And this is all the aggravation stuff. So do we have anything we can prescribe on? Not just yet, but we're getting there. Yeah. At this point, I want to pause for just a moment. And let's go back and look at my list of rubrics that I used for these aggravations. You'll see where I put a plus sign here. I actually did some combining, and I want to go ahead and do that now, because I think it's important for us to see how that is a useful tool. We like to have, or I should say, I prefer when I'm working on a case, and you'll hear me say, oh, that's a lovely rubric, somewhere between 50 and 100 remedies, 50 and above is nice. When they get too big, like, 400, 500, 600, they're a little bit difficult to work with, and we need more precision in order to use those to represent our patient. But what I thought I would do, let's just look at the laughing for a moment. So for those who are not familiar, there are a number of ways that you can take 2 rubrics and combine them together. Let's just look at, that's clipboard 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's look at this clipboard by itself. Okay. So I've got 2 rubrics here, and what I'm going to do now, I use the command key on my Mac keyboard. I think it's the window key on your Windows machine. We do have a cheat sheet if you need that from customer support. They can get you that so you see what your cheating keys are. What I want to do is I want to highlight both of these rubrics. So I'm going to highlight one with my mouse. Then I'm just going to hold that command key, which highlights the second rubric. And now, in order to do my combining, I need my combining menu. So if I right click here, I'll choose group or combine rubrics. And I want to encourage you to use the grouping. Okay. Add the selected symptoms to a group. See, it's the thing that's ticked off for you here at the top. And my first choice is going to be the correct one, with all remedies combining. I have to give the group a letter designation. I will call it letter A. Forget everything down here that says combining. You'll see why in just a moment. So when I do combine, you will notice that, let me uncombine these for just a sec. First, I'm going to select them and I'm going to ungroup them. Okay, because I wanted to point something out. You'll notice right now that I've got 7 remedies here that appear in both of my rubrics, right? So let's say aconite, for example, appears in 2 rubrics, right? Borax, 2 rubrics. After I've made that combination, so again, right click, group or combine remedies. I'm going to assign a group A. All of my remedies here now appear in just 1 symptom. Why? Because the computer considers these 2 to be a single symptom. And I actually like that better. I don't want to give plumbum or stannum or even aconite more weight in the case just because it appears in 2 of my rubrics as opposed to 1. In other words, arsenicum or belladonna might indeed be just as relevant in this case as borax. Okay, so that's the reason for combining these two into a single symptom. So let's do another one. That was clipboard 5 with the laughing. Let's do the same thing with the clothing, because these are very similar, aren't they? Okay, so I'm going to select one of the rubrics, just clicking on it with my mouse. And then when I hold the command key, I can select the second one, right click, group or combine. Now, I don't want to choose the same group. Okay, I got to give it a different designation. So I'll call that group B. And I've now got a single symptom for the aggravation from the clothing on the chest. Okay, so I've got my laughing and my clothing, which are 2 symptoms. And you'll notice, interestingly enough, I've now got like 6 remedies just with those modalities that cover both of those. Okay, so it's not decisive by any means, but hopefully that helps you see how to do the combining. Now, why don't I just combine them all together? When you choose group or combine, when you choose this alternative down here where it says combine, the original rubrics go away and you're left with some kind of a combination. You'll see that in a minute, but I kind of want to know exactly the specificity, if you will, of the symptoms. So I like to preserve these both rubrics by grouping them. And it also gives me the option to, again, I can right click and I can ungroup the rubrics. Okay, so it's kind of click on, it's a little bit more complicated than click on, click off, but that's there. Okay, so who's chatting? I'm not quite clear how to know which line of remedies to use when you group as you did. Okay, Karen, I'm not sure I understand your question. Which line of remedies?
Right. You have laughing, chest laughing, and generals laughing. So we've got a lot in the generals laughing line, and just the chest. How do you, when you see them like that, can you use? Does that say that you can use anything that's in the line that's in the row that's fuller?
I think I understand your question. First of all, where we're going with this exercise, and I'm going to go ahead and let me bring up the entire analysis for now. Okay, so I'm just going to use the function F8 key, which should bring up the entire analysis. Okay, so here is where we are thus far. And if you'll forgive me, I don't like it when one of those is highlighted because I didn't mean to. Okay, so here's the whole analysis thus far. We've got the first 3 clipboards have our chief complaints and our auxiliary complaints, if you will. Then we've got 3 more clipboards with our modalities. Okay, and what we are looking for here is a pool of remedies here at the top that we are going to have to go into. This is best practices, is to go into the literature and study the remedy before we make our prescription. Now, with that being said, would it be useful? I'll just pause it. Let me propose, for example, that we study the remedy Ipecac. You'll see over here in position 22. I would argue it's probably not worth studying Ipecac. I'm going to highlight that for just a minute so that we can see it a little bit better. Ipecac doesn't have cramping, pain. It's good on the oppression in the chest, and it's got the right kind of mucus quality, doesn't it? The white and the slimy, right? But look down here. I've got none of my laughing or clothing modalities for Ipecac. So the likelihood that I'm going to spend my valuable time studying this remedy in order to determine if that might be a good solution for this patient, the likelihood of that is relatively slim. I'm going to be focused on the symptoms that I consider really to be the most important. And, I may as well interject right here. While we're doing this, you've seen how I made groups, okay, or how I combined various symptoms here. So let's take a look at the remedy arsenicum, for example. It tells us in our sum of symptoms. sorted by degree, that arsenicum appears in 11 symptoms. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, how did they get 11? It's 10. And then these two are really just counted as the same symptom. Clothing aggravates and chest depression. You see, because we combine these as a group, it's looking at this as a single symptom and laughing as a single symptom. Okay. Aconite, if you go over here, this is considered a single symptom. Aconite, it says we have 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. I'm not answering your question in terms of which one of these should you be looking at, because again, this is a matter for you as the prescriber. This is just a map to give us an idea of where our remedies are most well represented in the case. Okay. Or I should say the case is most well represented by remedies. And we would expect to have polycrests come up here. I'm going to show you something for those who may or may not be aware that under our analysis strategies, I don't do these when we're trying to learn from historic cases. But if I've got a case that I can't figure out, or I've given a couple polycrests and I'm not getting anywhere, I may want to shift to same analysis. I may want to shift to small remedies, and you'll see that the system itself is going to throw up small remedies for me to consider. Okay. So the analysis has changed pretty substantially, and I can take a look at remedies that I may not have thought about to see how are they represented in my symptoms, and are they something that I want to consider, like Bovista with the pressure on the chest, or, maybe spongia actually might be an interesting thought. Even though it's a small remedy, it's quite well represented with our chief complaint and some of our weather modalities, right? So, for the purpose, again, of this discussion, what we're trying to do here is get this entire case and all of these bits and pieces modeled in the software. And then we're going to have to get in here and dig around a little bit to find the most suitable medicine. Does that answer your question at all?
It does. This is terrific. Thank you. And pointing out that you can actually, if these small remedies, all these cute little things in the corner, that's helpful too.
Yeah. Now, remember, I do all my analysis here using sum of symptoms, sorted degrees. I like to have nice sized rubrics. I don't like to have the giant. Now, here's what I'm going to do. And here's what I wanted to show you guys as a next rough cut of how I'm going to begin to manipulate or work with this set of symptoms. And we haven't quite finished the repertorization just yet, but I think it's okay for me to dip in here now, because I want to finish by 5 and then throw that other case out. Remember, I pointed out earlier that this in the realm of complaints, that this cramping pain, and that's a nice size rubric. Remember what I said? I like between 50 and 100. And I want to thank Dr. Will Taylor, who many, many years ago, I took courses with Dr. Taylor, and I believe it was him who got me onto this idea of a nice size rubric. So I want to thank Will Taylor, wherever you are, for giving me that guidance, because it's served me very, very well throughout the years. Chest pain, cramping, I love it. It's so distinctive of this patient. And isn't it exactly the first thing? When you're studying a historical case, they don't give you a lot of fluff. They give you what you need so you can stand on this thing. You just have to bang through it. A young man has cramp-like pain in the chest. So you know what I'm going to do to make my job a little easier? I'm going to actually underline or highlight that symptom. Now, you see I've highlighted it here. If I right-click, I can do this thing called change intensity, and I could give it 2 underlines. Watch what happens. It got a number 2 here now, and it actually counts double as though it were 2 rubrics. You can do that another way too. If you've highlighted the rubric, you can simply type the number on your computer. So if I want to give it 3 underlines, I'm going to just type the number 3. Okay. Now notice as I do that things are shifting. I'm going to go back to 1. Like, let's look at nux vomica for a minute. As soon as I see nux does not appear in the cramping. So tell me, would you consider nux vomica in this case? Yeah, probably not, huh? Because there's no cramping and he also doesn't have the white expectoration. Anyway, my point is this. Watch what happens to nux and aconite when I give more emphasis to that symptom. If I type my 2, all of a sudden nux and aconite have fallen down, okay? They're backsliding. I'm going to say, for the purpose of really focusing in on what's important here, yeah, there's chest depression, but you know what? I don't want to delete the symptom altogether, but I'm going to take it out of it. It's going to be rendered ineffective by typing a 0. Okay, it's still there, but it's not counting toward these totals anymore because it's such a big rubric. Okay, are you following me? I am also going to say that, what else did I want to do? I kind of want to give the clothing. Let's take the clothing. So that's both of those. And let's bump them up to a 2. Let's give them a little more oomph to the clothing symptoms. So you see that things are beginning to get rearranged up here as I, as the prescriber, begin to say, I want to put a little more emphasis on particular symptoms, eliminating some of the symptoms altogether. In fact, windy and stormy versus the wind, you know what? Let's just throw wind out just for fun. Doesn't really change much, but it's changing things just a bit. Okay. You have the ability to do this before you make a decision about what's going on up here and get into your study. We got another question here. What is radar definition of a small remedy? I don't know exactly. That's beyond my level of expertise without having to study. I will tell you this, Lynn, if we go to the small remedies settings right here, this whole numbering system that we were relying on before to tell us anything becomes useless. And I think this has something to do with the algorithm for small remedies. If you're curious about this, though, and it's a great question, from our small remedies setting, and you can always tell right down here in the bottom, you see just to the right of the left, where it says, this will tell you we're on the small remedy setting. Watch what happens when I slide my slider to the right. And let's go. Theoretically, these are all small remedies, right? All the way, hypericum, until I start to get to, at some point, I'm going to get to what are polycrests. Look here. You see how all of a sudden arsenicum and phosphorus, remember those were at the top of our sum of symptoms analysis? As far as I can tell, all of these remedies in this analysis are being considered small remedies. I don't think that's really quite right, and I'm probably not answering your question, but it's a good one. All right. So let us get back to the analysis. Now, what I want to do, I'm going to go to my little cheat sheet. And where were we? We were here. Those are the rubrics. I want to do the warm room because this is important for our modalities. We're getting right down to the wire here. So entering warm room. I got to tell you, I had to work on this a bit, and I've shown this in a previous video as well. We did it, I think, on our last case last month. Let us do a search for entering the warm room. Okay. And I always encourage you to use the advanced search. Okay. That's the F5. Your advanced search window is going to look like this. And over here, the first search field is search words in English. And I am going to put, let me see what I'm going to put. Entering warm room. Exactly that. Entering, enter, warm, enter. You see, each time I enter a word, I have to hit enter a couple of times through the return key so that I get this blue check mark letting me know we're almost ready to go. Entering warm room. Enter. Now, to do this search properly, I want to choose I'm going to search in all repertories. So every repertory that I have in my library of repertories here, all of these, because I've got, kind of a big package here, all of those repertories are going to be searched for those 3 words. I don't always do that broad a search, but in this instance, let's see what we get. So we'll launch the search. Wow, this is no joke. We've got quite a number of rubrics, don't we? All of which give a result of warm room, entering a warm room, when entering a warm room. So that looks pretty good. Now, here's what I want to suggest you do. So this is your pro tip, if you will. I can actually check this little box here that says view all the documents in one list. Okay, currently I'm viewing just the results from Synthesis Adonis Repertory. And honestly, I'm just looking for the modality entering a warm room. I'm not looking for the chest. I'm not looking for generals. That's because I already did that, and didn't find much. So I said, all right, let me just look for entering a warm room. View all the, when I check view all the documents in one list, I now show in my results of search over here, all of these repertories, all of the rubrics from all of the repertories that I have in a list here. You see them? They're all there at once. Now, in these newer versions of the software, you have the option of doing a right click, pointing to any one of these rubrics and doing a right click. And this is the option that again, this is your, play with it on your free time. Take all rubrics. So that means I'm going to take all of the rubrics that are shown here and create a new combined rubric. Okay. Added to the first free clipboard. So this is going to take all, however many these are, 264 rubrics. Let's watch. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it. There they go. You see, they're adding up. All the rubrics together are being added together. It says, give it a name. Well, I put in entering warm room, right? That's all I put, entering warm room, rename. And that is the rubric that the program created with 112 remedies that all have something to do with entering a warm room. It's not very specific, but I was having some trouble when I was looking up the chest and generals and entering a warm room. So I thought, let's go ahead and have a look at this technique. Okay, so again, I did a search. I could just as easily have said entering warm. So if I wanted to, for example, uncheck that box, let's do the search again, search in all repertories. Oh, I got 270 hits. I got even more because, yeah, I got more rubrics come up that time because I wasn't limiting to myself. So even entering warm would give me a list. I put all the documents, view all documents in one list. I could do just the rubric from Synthesis Adonis. Let's do that. Let's uncheck that box. Let's just look at Adonis. 58 rubrics, all having to do with entering warm. If I make a right click, take all the rubrics, create a new combined rubric, add it to the first free clipboard. That's going to be right here, all 58 of them. That was just a test. That's this one. It says cough, but it was really everything because I didn't bother to update the designation. I don't really want that one. I'm gonna clear that clipboard. Okay. So hopefully that made sense. Are there questions on that little technique there? Why not use generals, warm room, aggravates? Yeah, because the remedy I wanted was not in there. Let's do that, Lynn. Generals, warm room, aggravates. That's not a bad idea. I could do that. Let's put it there on that same, let's put it on that same clipboard. Let's look at those two together. This is interesting. All right. So here's the one that we created by doing that search. And here's the one out of the latest repertory. Let's see where they overlap. I'm going to go all the way out here. So we have 65 remedies in common. And then this is interesting. Look, Rumex is actually here in our synthesized rubric, but not in generals, warm room, aggravates. That's odd because, Rumex, we know, aggravates in warm air. Oh no, it aggravates in cold air, doesn't it? So, okay, well, I'm wrong. Anyway, you see that there's not a lot of overlap here. So you know what we could do? Let's take both of them. Whoops, let's take both. Let's combine them. Group or combine, just so we get some more exercise with that. And then I'll give them a new letter, letter F, because I can't remember where I left off. Okay, so those are now considered as one symptom. All right, let's look at our analysis. We've got just about everything. We've got our entering the warm room. Thank you, Lynn, for that. We've got our chest with the clothing, and I've done a bit of emphasizing. I took wind out. I could put wind back in. Remember how we do that? It's zeroed out now, but I just type a 1. And things shift a little bit. Look, Spongia doesn't Spongia keep coming up? Interesting, isn't it? Even though that's being called a small remedy. That might be a really good hint. Again, if you've given the phosphorus, you've given the arsenic gum, but it's still not nothing. You definitely are going to go for the Spongia, aren't you? Assuming they're thirsty or what have you. Okay, so I better get back to my presentation because I'm running over. Okay. Search warm room, entering, then combine. Okay, we saw how to do that. Very good. Aggravations. There are our rubrics, the ameliorations, ameliorated with expectoration. I did a search for that as well and came up with a rubric. We are not going to bother with that because I really just need to move on. This is what I screenshotted for my my analysis at the end of the day. I had my expectoration ameliorates, and you know what we're going to do so that we can recreate this exact thing? I'm going to bring up that case. So this is the one we just worked on. Let's screenshot it just for fun in case, we might want it at some point. Anybody know how to screenshot? See, there's a thing up here in the upper right. It says screenshot. So noisy, but there it is. All right. I'm going to right click by pointing to any clipboard. I'm going to recall analysis, and I'm going to do the one from pain and chest final. Okay. That was this case. And I've got all of those clipboards that I showed you earlier. That's where I took my screenshot from. Oh, but I didn't have those zeroed out, did I? So I'm going to give a 2 for the oppression. I'm sorry for the cramping. I'm going to zero out the oppression. And what else did I do? I decided that I wanted to force the laughing. Why did I want to force the laughing? Because the prescriber emphasized it, and it's so very particular to this case. He's got a lot of other things going on, but this laughing aggravates, like violent laughing. Why would they even say that? You can do this. If that comes up in a case, you say, wow, that's the most remarkable piece. You can actually choose to use it as a filter. So let's go to our case and let us show how to do exactly that. So clipboard 5, this is our laughing. Remember, they've been added together as though they were one symptom. And if I right click, I can actually do what's called change qualification. And you see here where it says eliminative. That means if the remedy is not in that grouped rubric, it's no longer part of the analysis. Okay. To change that back, I just changed qualification to normal. Let's look. Here's Spongia. Here's sepia. Okay, they're not there for laughing. So watch what happens when I use this great filter tool. Spongia and sepia have disappeared from consideration. Okay, now, what are we going to do to solve the case? Yeah, we've got several possibilities here. And I am going to, here was my final manipulation. Okay, I said to myself, this is where I'm going to find my remedy. Why did some of those other remedies go away? Because I also used the clothing aggravates in the chest. Let's go ahead and set that up. Highlight both, right click, and turn that into a filter as well. Okay, so we've got a small list of remedies that we're working with now. These are the ones that I'm going to want to study. Okay, My Nux is out because there's no cramping and there's no white expectoration. So I'm really down, quite honestly, people, to phosphorus and arsenicum. All right. So what I want to do now is I want to go back and I want to show you what I do when I'm getting to the point of wanting to make a final prescribing decision. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm back at my advanced search and I'm going to run through this very quickly. Let's erase what we did already. I want to compare two remedies. I want to compare arsenicum, ARS, period, enter, enter, and I want to compare that with phosphorus, period, enter, enter, enter. There we go. I'm comparing arsenicum and phosphorus, and the words that I want to search, well, guess what? I'm going to recall a search that I already set up, which is this one. I already set that up for us. Phosphorus and arsenicum. And I put in various words that I wanted to compare. I had room. I want chest aggravation. Okay. The remedies are phosphorus and arsenicum. And I'm going to search in all repertories. Let's just have a look at what this search will give us. The results here now in my synthesis repertory that I'm highlighting are all of the rubrics that contain both arsenicum and phosphorus. Is that useful? Not so much, right? Because what I'm really trying to do is decide which one of these two remedies would I like to recommend for this patient. I like to do, if you'll take a look here where I'm highlighting this remedies button, let's choose this last item here called symptoms common and exclusive. Okay, and let's run that search again. So I'm looking at all the repertories, and it's going to take just a minute to bring up for us actually 3 separate searches. Notice here, the first search says aggravated and chest. Those are the words I searched for phosphorus and arsenicum, and every rubric listed here has both remedies. What I really want to know is what's different about the two of these. So this next tab says phosphorus without arsenicum. Okay, so now I'm going to read through this list of rubrics. You notice only phosphorus appears here. None of these have anything to do with arsenicum. Okay, and now I'm going to pick aggravation and chest for arsenicum, and I'm going to start going down here. And I'm going to begin to see, pardon me, the difference between these two rubrics. And, you know, because I've only got 5 minutes, I kind of shorted myself on time. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to actually point out what are our, pardon the expression, nail in the coffin rubrics here that are going to let us select arsenicum for this patient. Here's the chest depression, motion aggravates, rapid motion, walking, stormy weather. Look at that. It's the same. Chest depression, weather, stormy weather aggravates. There's our arsenicum, right? Wonder who the author is for that edition. Oh, Kent. Okay. And who's this other person? Well, we're not going to bother ourselves with that. Anyway, you turn on the author editions right over here. There's a little doctor looking person. Okay. So let me actually bring up the definitive rubrics that I pulled out with my technique of searching like I showed you here, where I'm comparing and contrasting the two remedies. I could also say, for example, uncheck chest and check room, and just look at how does the word room come up for both of these, just in repertories. I could do it just in Materia Medica, searching for the word room and comparing and contrasting the remedies phosphorus and arsenicum. And I can go ahead and read some of these results as I'm trying to make my decision. So let me show you, let me go back again to these, what I consider to be confirmatory rubrics. Indeed, this was an arsenicum case. And it's not an easy case, because if you go back to what we had originally, based just on our repertorization, I think we did a good job of characterizing things. But you know, phosphorus and arsenicum are kind of neck and neck here. So we had to do a little extra research to get to these confirmation for arsenicum in this case. Actually, it looks like I did a search for respiration, warm, and room, and phosphorus did not appear there. So when I gave myself the liberty of searching the word respiration. Okay, we are nearly out of time. If I enter a clipboard, for example, how to delete a mistaken rubric. Oh, okay, two things. Anytime you want to get rid of a rubric, you point to the rubric, and when you right click,
No, I
gonna-
meant if I enter a clipboard to delete a rubric, for example, then I'm stuck in my analysis in just that clipboard.
that's
How
fine.
do I
I've
get
got
all
you.
the
Okay,
clipboards back?
to get all of your clipboards back, the default way to do that is to go up here under analysis and use do show current analysis, F8. That's going to give you everything using the F8 key on your keyboard. Now, you're going to want to choose that command key you'll notice here that I've got clipboards in 11 and 12 are also displayed, and I really don't want those. So you can select and unselect various rubrics using the command key, or I believe it's the window key on your keyboard. That's all covered in some of my other videos.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there other questions about this case? Okay, we have 5:14. So I missed my opportunity to give you a Q&A. There's our research, and there's our research practice case number 14, a study in the use of placebo. I would very much like to invite those of you who are here today to reach out to our customer support and ask him to send you a copy of today's notes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to append this case, which this comes from Erastus' case, and it's a case of epithelioma, I believe, epithelioma. And you'll notice the case here. Okay, it's a very straightforward case. I'm not going to give you the remedy here because you may simply want to work this up. Okay, this is a beautiful case that will lend itself very well to what we just did. And then if you go to page 2, which I'm not going to click on right now, you will see the entire series of what would we call these, follow-ups and redosing. Okay, don't pay any attention, or don't pay much attention to the potencies, because they're very, very different than what we would use today. The important thing to note when you get to the follow-ups to this case is to know, when did the prescriber give placebo, and when did they choose to repeat the remedy or to give the same remedy in a higher potency. And I think you will find that there's a great deal of learning that you can do from this case as well. So again, what I'm going to be doing when we finish up here is I'm going to take this presentation, put it together in a PDF with some tiny screenshots, and then you will be welcome to go ahead and get that from customer support. You can watch the video again. And I think that's it for today. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for attending. I'm a minute or so over. Those who'd like to stay for 5-10 minutes, I'm happy to answer questions. But before I don't want to let you go, so that we do stay on time. Those who need to leave, thanks again for attending. And let us know if you like this kind of a workshop. I'd certainly be happy to do some more of these for you. And as you can see, I am available for individual sessions and case supervising and that sort of thing as well. So thanks again.
Fabulous. This is fabulous. Thank you very much.
You're very, very welcome. Anybody want to chat or, release your microphone and ask questions? I'll stay around for a couple minutes here. Thanks so much.
I'm not
to everyone
exactly
for being
sure
here.
how to contact somebody to get these notes.
Oh, okay. Here it says contact it. Yeah, I've got to put a link so I can figure it out. Let us go to that RadarOpus.us website again. So I'm going to bring up my browser. I'm going to go to RadarOpus.us. If you can get here, you're good, because from here, there's a button that says contact us. You'll click there and you will go sales support. You'll either email orders@RadarOpus.us, or you can call or text. There's a phone number. Okay. It's that simple. Again, the recordings are here under free on-demand videos. There is paid tutoring. I think that's the tutoring with me. There's a discount and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, NCH is offering a webinar now. Oh, okay. Carol, nice to have you. And thank you everyone for being here. Is there anybody else that wants to stick around? You're free to go.
Okay,
You're all
thanks.
free to go. Thanks again for being here, everybody. And, wishing you all the best in every possible way.
Great, thank you.
Good, good.
Yeah, this was really helpful. Thank you. And
I'm glad to
I
hear
can
that.
see I can see how it would be helpful to use the multiple clipboards because I do a lot of combining of rubrics. And that way you can just put them there and then combine rather than you keep going through and then you find another one and you go back and you got to combine them again. And yeah, very nice.
Well, and the other advantage, Lynn, and I'm not sure if people caught on to this, but when you have the multiple clipboards, you can look at combinations of symptoms and then a different combination of symptoms. This is
Right.
something that Jeremy Sher, if you watch any of Jeremy Sher's old teaching videos, he will do a case analysis, 3 or 4 different ways, just by having your clipboards broken down that way. So that can be super, super helpful as well. I'm going to stop my share there. So yeah, I'm glad that you found that useful. And yeah, have a look at the one, that case number 14 that I'm going to append there and see if you can work that one up. That's a great practice case. And the other nice thing about using these old cases for practice is that they're not giving some fancy, not very well proven remedy. These are polycrest cases, and so they're not all that complicated, but they do really, each and every one of these cases, I don't know about you guys, but I learned something every time I dig through one of them, and it can only help you as you go forward, particularly when you get these acutes. And yeah, so thanks for being here. Anybody else? I'm sorry, Lynn, I cut you off.
No, that's right. I want to give someone else a chance if they have a question. Polycrest cases. There's a comment.
Oh, a polycrest. I call them polycrest cases. They're cases in which a polycrest remedy is given. And one of our, so let's say top 100 remedies, starting with sulfur and, pulsatilla, napier, and so on and so forth. Those would be considered your polycrest remedies. And it's amazing what we can do with a small handful of medicines if we carefully do an analysis. Now, we're not trying to work at the sensation level here. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with doing that. But far and away, I have many other ways in which I work my cases, my constitutional cases. This methodology is especially useful when we've got an acute and when a patient may have a limited selection of remedies on hand at home. They've got a small kit, so we want to have a polycrest remedy because that's probably all they've got on hand anyway. And we may have to do a bit of zigzag prescribing. So you'll take the case, you'll give the remedy the next day. One or two things may change, and you may need to go then to the next best indicated remedy or put those changed symptoms in and update your analysis. Good, good. Anybody else? Okay.
I do have another question if there's nobody
sure.
else.
Go on ahead, man. Yeah.
It's related, but separate. Can you show me really quickly how to see how many rubrics a remedy has?
Oh,
get an
sure.
idea
That's
of
a great
its size?
question. Yeah. Okay, let's go back to I have to share my desktop again. Okay. Can you see my program here?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, so we're going to go back. That's called an extraction. All right. And let's go. That's going to be a search. And again, I encourage you to use the advanced search. If you don't know how to find that, you'll see here we're in what I call the big icons here at the top, just to the left of center. There's a little arrow and you want the advanced search function F5 key. Okay, that's going to open that window. If it's got something in it already, you can just double click this eraser to clear it. And I am going to go in the lower left-hand corner, get rid of the table of contents because that bugs me. Okay, here we are. We have got a remedy that we want to, you said you want to see all the rubrics for that remedy, right? You want to
Yeah.
give me a remedy?
Rumex.
What do we? Rumex, R-U-M. Now, here's my pro tip. You get this big list of remedies here. Sometimes you might not know which Rumex it is, but you probably remember the abbreviation. So I'm just going to put RUMX period. And as soon as I do that, I get the one I want. And I'm going to hit enter, enter. As soon as I've hit enter twice, selecting my remedy, I've got a blue check mark here. This little dot is blue, and my cursor has moved down to the next field. If I wanted to put a second remedy in here, I could. But for the sake of demonstration here, we're just going to use the remedy Rumex, and we're going to go over here now in the upper left-hand corner. And when I click on search, I've got several options. Most often, just so that I don't forget to do something, I will search in all documents. But what that does is it pulls not just repertories, but also all the materia medica. You asked for it in repertories, right? So I could, okay, sidebar. Synthesis Adonis right now is the only repertory I have open, right? There's nothing else open here. So let's go back to my search window. If I want to just search in Adonis, I'll just do all open repertories. Get a lot less garbage that way. Here are the results of my search. It's Synthesis Adonis, and here are all of the rubrics. It's as simple as that. There are 2,089 rubrics for the remedy Rumex. Now, let us compare Rumex and Spongia. Oops, wrong keyboard. I got two keyboards going here, so sometimes I pick the wrong way. SPONG period, enter, enter. Now, if I open repertories only, yeah, let's do open repertories again. Now I get rubrics that have both. But just as a reminder to do that, compare and contrast, I'm going to go common and exclusive, launch that search again, and I actually have 3 tabs of results now. I have this tab where they're both. Then I have the tab where Rumex by itself and Spongia by itself. Okay, let me go one step further here. This little dot is not actually a dot. It's actually a little arrow. And you can also, let's get rid of Spongia. Let's just exit out like that. Let's go into Rumex, and let's say that I only want to see, I clicked that dot and it opened up some remedy extraction options. Let's say I only want to see Rumex in grades 3 and 4. In other words, bold or bold underlined. I don't think we're going to get very many rubrics, but it's sure going to show us the strengths of this particular medicine. And let's do that in all repertories. Okay. Oh, look at that. I've got 77 rubrics in which Rumex appears in bold type. So you see the difference there by changing the specifications for the degree. You got that?
Yes.
Okay. And you know, what's interesting, because I had thought, well, maybe in Boninghausen, we might get some different and interesting. Look, here's the grade 4. This is so interesting. Rumex is a grade 4 in stool before driving from bed. I did not know that, but you know what? Rumex does have a lot of sulfur in it. So that's a grade 4, which means it's, you know, a proven, clinically proven symptom. Isn't that interesting? Well, I learned something here. I also did not know that Calibic was in that rubric. Yeah. That help?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome very much. And with that, I think I am going to wrap up for today. Those who have stuck around, thank you very much for being here. And I wish you all the very best in your work and in your play. And we'll see you next time.
Thank
Take
you.
good care. You're welcome. Bye for now. session has been recorded and should be posted shortly. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye for now.